The massive crystalline chamber of the Galactic Council hummed with tension as Ambassador James Miller stood before the towering semicircle of alien representatives. His weathered face showed no emotion, but his gray eyes held a quiet determination that made several council members shift uncomfortably in their elevated seats. The council chamber itself was a marvel of architecture, designed to intimidate lesser species with its soaring ceilings and floating platforms. 15 different alien races looked down from their positions of power, their expressions ranging from bored disdain to barely hidden contempt. "Honorable Council," Miller began, his voice steady and clear in the vast space. "For the past 50 years, humanity has faithfully followed every regulation, met every requirement, and exceeded every benchmark set before us. Today, we once again petition for equal trading rights within the Commonwealth." High Counselor Rex, a towering being with iridescent scales, leaned forward. His species had held the leadership position for over 3 centuries. "The Council has reviewed Earth's petition," he announced, his translator converting his clicks and whistles into standard galactic common. "Once again, we find your species lacks the necessary development markers for unrestricted trade access." Miller's hands tightened slightly on the podium, the only sign of his frustration. Behind him, the other human delegates maintained their professional composure, though tension radiated from their rigid postures. "May I inquire which markers we have failed to meet this time?" Miller asked, emphasizing the last 2 words just enough to make several council members bristle. Counselor Brightwing, an avian being known for her harsh stance toward newer species, trilled something that her translator rendered as, "Your technology remains primitive by our standards. Your social structures are still based on outdated concepts of nation-states. You lack the unified planetary government we require." Miller nodded slowly, pulling out a small data device. "Interesting. According to Commonwealth law, Section 847B, a species needs to meet 7 out of 10 development markers for equal trading rights. Our latest assessments, verified by neutral observers, show we meet 8. A murmur ran through the chamber. Miller continued, "Furthermore, 3 other species currently enjoying full trading rights meet only 6 markers. This information is publicly available in the Commonwealth database." High Counselor Rex's scales shifted to a darker hue. "The Council reserves the right to make final determinations based on additional factors not listed in the general guidelines." "Ah, yes," Miller replied, his voice taking on an edge that made several junior council members flinch. "The unwritten rules, the moving goalposts, the special circumstances that somehow always apply to humans, but never to the Council's favored species. Ambassador Miller," Rex warned, "your tone approaches insolence." Miller straightened to his full height. Though he stood physically below the council members, something in his bearing made him seem to tower over them. "After today, you won't need to worry about my tone anymore. Humanity hereby announces its immediate withdrawal from the Galactic Commonwealth." The chamber erupted in shocked exclamations. Several council members rose from their seats, their various appendages gesturing in alarm. "You cannot simply withdraw," Brightwing screeched, her translator struggling to keep up. "There are procedures, protocols." Miller smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Actually, we can. We've spent the last 5 years quietly preparing for this moment. All human citizens have been evacuated from Commonwealth space. Our treaties have been legally dissolved through provisions you never bothered to read carefully. As of this moment, humanity is no longer bound by Commonwealth law." He turned to leave, then paused and looked back at the stunned council. "You know what the truly sad part is? We genuinely wanted to be partners, equals. Instead, you treated us like children playing with toys we didn't understand. Remember this moment, honored counselors. Remember it well, because this is the day you turned humanity from eager allies into determined competitors." The human delegation walked out of the chamber in perfect unison, their footsteps echoing in the shocked silence. As the massive doors closed behind them, fear finally began to creep into the hearts of the council members. They had just witnessed something unprecedented, a species choosing to walk away from the Commonwealth's protection and privileges. None of them slept well that night, haunted by Miller's final words and the unsettling feeling that they had made a terrible mistake. The council chambers felt different in the weeks following humanity's departure. The usual pomp and grandeur seemed hollow, overshadowed by an unsettling quiet that none of the members wanted to acknowledge. Rix, a junior analyst for the council's intelligence division, sat at her desk in the lower levels of the Great Crystal Spire, staring at the data streams flowing across her screens. Her species was known for their analytical abilities, with 4 eyes specially adapted to process multiple information sources simultaneously. Right now, all 4 of her eyes were fixed on some very disturbing patterns. "Senior Analyst Port," she called out, her voice trembling slightly. "You need to see this." Port, a veteran of the intelligence division for over 40 years, glided over on his gravity pad. His crystalline form caught the light, creating small rainbows on the nearby walls. "What is it, junior analyst?" "Look at these trade patterns," Rix pointed to her main screen. "All human merchants have completely withdrawn from our primary trade routes, but the strange thing is where they're going." She pulled up a star map, highlighting several sectors in red. "They're establishing new routes through regions we've always considered unprofitable. The outer rim colonies, the asteroid belts, even the radiation zones." Port's crystalline structure dimmed slightly, his species equivalent of a frown. "Perhaps they're simply desperate for new markets." "That's what I thought at first," Rix continued, her lower eyes blinking rapidly in excitement. "But look at these energy readings." She pulled up another screen filled with scanning data. "Their ships are using less than half the fuel they used to require for the same distances." Port's structure dimmed further. "That's impossible. Their propulsion technology was assessed as primitive just months ago." "Exactly," Rix exclaimed, then quickly lowered her voice, remembering where she was. "And it's not just their ships. Look at these manufacturing reports from the outer colonies." The screens filled with production data from various independent worlds. Human goods were appearing on markets throughout the galaxy, but they were different now. More efficient, more advanced, and somehow still cheaper than their competitors. Port settled his gravity pad closer to the desk. "How are they doing this? We've monitored their research facilities for decades. They never showed signs of such capabilities." Rix's upper eyes narrowed while her lower ones continued scanning data. "Sir, I have a theory. What if they've been hiding their true capabilities all along? What if everything we thought we knew about human technology was just what they wanted us to see?" The senior analyst started to dismiss her suggestion, then paused. "Computer, pull up the last technological assessment of Earth before their withdrawal." The screen filled with reports, and both analysts stared at them in growing unease. Every major advancement in human technology had been documented, categorized, and dismissed as primitive by council experts. But looking at them now, Port noticed something strange. "These advancements," he muttered, his crystalline form vibrating with concern. "They're too regular, too predictable, almost as if they were carefully planned to appear slow and steady." Rix finished. "Just enough progress to show development, but never enough to alarm anyone." Port quickly accessed higher-level security files. "Look at this." Their withdrawal wasn't sudden at all. They'd been systematically reducing their dependencies on Commonwealth resources for years. "We just never put the pieces together." A notification flashed across their screens. Another human trade fleet had been detected, this time using what appeared to be some form of previously unknown shielding technology. Port's form had darkened to a deep blue of worry. "Prepare a full report. This needs to go to the High Council immediately." But as Rix began compiling the data, both analysts knew it was too late. The humans hadn't just walked away. They had sprinted, taking with them technological capabilities that no one had suspected they possessed. In the great chambers above, the council continued their daily deliberations, unaware that their comfortable assumptions about humanity were about to be shattered. The whispers of change were growing louder, and soon they would be impossible to ignore. 3 years after humanity's dramatic exit from the Galactic Commonwealth, the Council's worst fears were beginning to materialize. High Counselor Rex stood at his private viewing window in the Crystal Spire, watching the bustling space lanes below. His scales had taken on a permanent grayish tint, a sign of chronic stress in his species. "Play the latest intelligence report," he commanded his personal eye. A holographic display materialized, showing footage of a human trade vessel. The ship was unlike anything the Commonwealth had seen before. Sleek, dark, and moving with an impossible grace. Its hull seemed to absorb sensor scans rather than reflect them, and its drive signature was barely detectable. "Sixth sighting this week," his AI reported. "This vessel crossed 50 light-years in under 3 days. Our fastest ships would need 2 weeks for the same journey." Rex's tail twitched in agitation. The humans weren't just surviving outside the Commonwealth. They were thriving. Their ships now moved like shadows through space, appearing and disappearing at will, using technology that seemed to defy the Council's understanding of physics. In another part of the Crystal Spire, the Council's Security Committee was in emergency session. Admiral Brightwing paced the chamber, her feathers ruffled in distress. "Our best spy ships can't even get close to Earth's solar system anymore," she reported, her translator struggling to keep up with her agitated trills. "They've established some kind of detection grid. Anything with Commonwealth signatures is identified and turned away before it even reaches their outer planets." Counselor Mech, a being composed primarily of pure energy, pulsed with concern. "What about our deep cover agents?" "All gone," Brightwing replied. "Either discovered and deported, or," she paused, "they've chosen to defect. We've lost all interior intelligence on human space." The committee chamber's displays showed a map of known space. Red dots indicated confirmed sightings of human vessels and trade operations. The dots were spreading like a virus across the galaxy, concentrating especially in regions the Commonwealth had long ignored. "They're focusing on the outer colonies," Mech observed. "Independent worlds that were too small or poor for our attention. And those colonies are growing rapidly," another committee member added. "Worlds that could barely support their populations 3 years ago are now showing significant technological advancement, all traced back to human trade." A junior officer burst into the chamber, breaking all protocols of proper council etiquette. "Counselors, we've just received word. The Rigel Trading Hub has signed an exclusive deal with human merchants." The news hit like a physical blow. Rigel was one of the largest independent trading centers in the galaxy, technically outside Commonwealth jurisdiction, but always reliably aligned with Council interests, until now. Back in his private chamber, Rex received the news with a sense of impending doom. He accessed the classified archives, searching for any precedent of such rapid expansion by a single species. The closest example was from 50,000 years ago, when the now extinct precursor civilization had dominated the galaxy. His console chimed with another alert. The latest scan of human space showed evidence of massive construction projects. Whatever they were building, it was big enough to be visible from outside their defensive grid, but too well shielded to identify. "Computer," Rex said quietly, "show me Ambassador Miller's final speech again." As he watched the recording, Rex noticed details he'd missed before. The calm confidence, the complete lack of concern about leaving the Commonwealth's protection, the subtle hints in Miller's words that humanity had already moved beyond needing the Council's approval. "We treated them like children playing with toys," Rex muttered, quoting Miller's parting words. Now those children were revolutionizing galactic trade, deploying technology the Council couldn't match, and building something massive in their home system. For the first time in his 3 centuries of life, Rex felt truly afraid. The Commonwealth had not just lost control of humanity. They had never had it in the first place. And now, in the vast silence of space, humanity's true power was finally beginning to show itself. The Galactic Patent Office, normally a quiet place of methodical bureaucracy, had descended into chaos. Chief Patent Officer Lux stared at the mountain of new applications flooding his terminal, all submitted through third-party representatives, but clearly bearing the hallmarks of human innovation. Another one, his assistant called out, adding to the growing holographic pile. This one combines Centarian power systems with modified Proxian crystals in a way that increases efficiency by 300%. Lux's tendrils twisted in frustration. The humans weren't just inventing new technologies. They were taking existing technologies from different species and combining them in ways no one had ever considered. Worse, they were doing it better than the original inventors. In the main council chamber, an emergency session was underway. The floor was covered in physical prototypes and holographic displays of human innovations that had hit the market in the past month alone. "Look at this," Councillor Brightwing said, activating a small device. They took our atmospheric processors, combined them with Regelian water purifiers, and created a system that can terraform a planet in months instead of centuries. They're selling them at half the price of our best models. High Councillor Rex picked up another device, his scales shifting to a puzzled orange. This personal shield generator. It uses elements from 5 different species shield technologies. Our scientists said these systems were incompatible. "That's the problem," said Chief Science Officer Vax, his gelatinous form rippling with agitation. "We've all specialized in our own technological paths for millennia. Humans, they think differently. They see connections we miss. They take our specialized knowledge and combine it in ways we never imagined." A junior council member activated a holographic display showing market shares across the galaxy. The graphics told a devastating story. In sector after sector, human hybrid technologies were rapidly displacing traditional council products. "But how?" demanded Brightwing. "Their technology was primitive. We saw their research facilities." Chief Science Officer Vax moved to the center of the chamber. "I've analyzed their pattern of development. We weren't seeing their research facilities. We were seeing what they wanted us to see. Decoys. Limited versions. They've been studying us, learning from every species they encountered, while showing us only a fraction of their capabilities." The chamber erupted in concerned murmurs. Rex raised his hand for silence. "Show us the evidence." Vax projected a series of images showing human technological development over the past century. Notice how each advancement was just significant enough to show progress, but never enough to draw serious attention. They were learning, adapting, combining technologies in their hidden facilities, while presenting a facade of limited capability to our observers. He switched to current images of human products flooding the market. "Now look at these. Every single innovation builds on multiple existing technologies, improved and combined in ways we thought impossible. They didn't just study our individual advancements. They studied how everything could work together." The evidence was undeniable. Humanity hadn't just been catching up during their centuries in the Commonwealth. They had been quietly surpassing their supposed superiors, waiting for the right moment to reveal their true capabilities. "There's more," Vax continued, his form darkening with concern. "These innovations, they're not just random combinations. Each one fills a specific need, addresses a particular weakness in current technology. They've been analyzing our vulnerabilities for centuries." The council chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. They had thought themselves teachers, generously guiding a primitive species. Instead, they had been unwitting study subjects in humanity's greatest experiment. "What do we do now?" someone finally asked. Rex looked at the display of human innovations, each one a testament to humanity's unique ability to see patterns and possibilities that other species missed. "We hope," he said quietly, "that they remember we once called them primitive and find it in themselves to forgive us." The innovation storm was just beginning, and there was nothing the Council could do but watch as humanity reshaped the technological landscape of the galaxy, one brilliant combination at a time. The Council was in complete disarray. Councillor Brightwing watched helplessly as the Trade Minister from Centauri Prime, one of the Commonwealth's oldest members, signed an independent trade agreement with the human delegation. "This is a violation of council unity," she screeched, but her words carried none of their former authority. The Centaurian minister simply bowed his crystalline head. "With respect, Counselor, we must put the needs of our people first. Human technologies have become essential to modern civilization. We cannot deny our citizens access to these advancements any longer." This scene was repeating itself across the galaxy. One by one, council worlds were breaking ranks, establishing direct trade relations with Earth. The humans, once dismissed as primitive, now sat at negotiating tables as equals, or more accurately, as the dominant party. In a secure meeting room deep within the council spire, High Counselor Rex met with Human Ambassador Thomas Ward, who had replaced Miller. The difference in their positions could not have been more stark. Rex's scales had dulled to an anxious gray, while Ward sat with the relaxed confidence of someone holding all the cards. "Your terms are significant," Rex said, reviewing the trade proposal before him. Ward smiled politely. "They're actually quite reasonable, considering market values. We're offering your worlds access to our complete technology catalog at fair prices. We're even including technical training for your people. And in return, just the removal of all trade restrictions against Earth and our allies. Plus, of course, an acknowledgement that human innovation patents have full protection under Commonwealth law." Rex's tail twitched. They both knew this was more than a simple trade deal. It was a complete reversal of power. The Council would be acknowledging humanity as a technological superior. Meanwhile, in the public sectors of various Council worlds, the situation was becoming critical. Protests had broken out on 12 major planets, with citizens demanding access to human medical technology, environmental systems, and consumer goods. "They're calling it the human standard now," reported Intelligence Officer Rix to her superiors. "Any world that doesn't have access to human technology is considered backwards. Even our most advanced member species are being pressured by their populations to establish trade relations with Earth." The effects were visible everywhere. Ships using human hybrid drives moved faster and more efficiently than traditional vessels. Colonies using human terraforming technology flourished while others struggled. Medical facilities with human equipment saved lives that traditional methods couldn't. Back in the council chamber, an emergency vote was underway. The proposal, to formally recognize humanity's new status and begin negotiations for preferential trade access. "We cannot maintain our position without their technology," argued Councillor Mech, his energy form pulsing with urgency. "Our people will not accept being left behind, while independent worlds prosper with human innovations." "But to admit we were wrong," Brightwing began. "We were wrong," Rex interrupted, his voice heavy with resignation. "We were wrong about their capabilities, wrong about their potential, and wrong to restrict them. Now we must deal with the consequences." The vote was nearly unanimous. Within hours, the Council announced its decision to the galaxy. All restrictions on human trade were lifted, and a new era of cooperative development would begin. Ambassador Ward transmitted the news to Earth with a simple message: Phase 1 complete. Beginning Phase 2 negotiations. In his private chamber, Rex reviewed the statistics one last time. In just 5 years since leaving the Commonwealth, humanity had fundamentally altered the balance of power in the galaxy. They had done it not through military might or political maneuvering, but through sheer innovative brilliance. The power shift was complete, and there was no going back. The species that the Council had once patronized as primitive now held the keys to the galaxy's technological future, and somehow, Rex suspected, this was exactly what humanity had planned all along. Deep in the Council archives, beneath layers of security that hadn't been breached in centuries, Archive Master Vel made a discovery that made his crystalline form nearly shatter with shock. His trembling appendages activated the ancient data crystal, and the holographic records filled the secure chamber with their eerie light. "Emergency Protocol 7249, he read aloud, his voice echoing in the empty room. "First contact assessment. Humanity. Date: Council year 47,300 and 92. The recording showed a much younger High Counselor Rex, along with council members who had long since passed into history. They were discussing humanity's first contact evaluation, but what Vel saw made his core temperature drop dramatically. This species demonstrates unprecedented adaptive capabilities, the younger Rex was saying. Their rate of technological advancement exceeds all known patterns. More concerning, they show remarkable ability to understand and improve upon technologies they encounter. Another counselor, now long dead, spoke up. The simulations are clear. If allowed unrestricted development, humanity could surpass our technological level within a few centuries. Then we are agreed, the younger Rex declared. Implementation of the containment protocol is authorized. Their development must be carefully controlled and restricted to prevent them from reaching their full potential. Vel's hands shook as he accessed more records. The Council's original decision had never been about humanity's primitive status. It had been about fear. Fear of humanity's potential for growth, their ability to learn and adapt at rates that terrified the established order. In another part of the archive, a junior researcher named Tech was analyzing Ambassador Miller's final speech. He had run it through every known translation matrix, looking for hidden meanings. What he found made him quickly contact Archive Master Vel. "Master," Tech transmitted urgently, "you need to see this." When filtered through the most sophisticated linguistic analysis, Miller's speech contains layers of meaning we missed entirely. Vel arrived just as Tech was highlighting key phrases from Miller's farewell address. "Look here," Tech pointed. When he said, "Remember this moment," he wasn't just making a dramatic statement. The word choice, the specific rhythm, it matches ancient warning protocols. He was telling us something. Together, they decoded the subtle message woven through Miller's words. It was a warning, but not the kind they expected. Miller had basically told them, "You tried to contain what cannot be contained. You feared what you didn't understand, and in doing so, created exactly what you feared most." The revelation spread through the Council's inner circle like a shockwave. Emergency meetings were called. Ancient records were pulled from deep storage. The truth could no longer be denied. The Council's attempts to restrict humanity had actually accelerated their development. By forcing them to hide their true capabilities, Vel explained to the gathered Council, "We made them more creative, more innovative. By restricting their access to advanced technology, we forced them to understand fundamental principles more deeply than any other species." High Counselor Rex, now much older and wiser, sat heavily in his chair as the implications became clear. "We didn't restrict their development," he said quietly. "We created the perfect conditions for them to exceed all our expectations." The final piece fell into place when they discovered humanity's patent filing patterns over the centuries. Each seemingly simple innovation had been building toward more complex technologies. They hadn't just been developing individual technologies, they had been creating an entirely new technological foundation. It was all planned. Tech whispered, looking at the evidence. Every restriction we placed on them, every barrier we created, they turned each one into an opportunity to grow stronger. The Council chamber fell silent as the full weight of their revelation sank in. They had spent centuries trying to prevent humanity from becoming too powerful, only to create circumstances that guaranteed exactly that outcome. And somewhere out in human space, their ships continued to grow faster, their colonies continued to expand, and their innovations continued to reshape the galaxy, exactly as that first council had feared they would. The Grand Council chamber was filled to capacity for the first time in centuries. Representatives from all Commonwealth worlds gathered to witness a historic moment. The formal apology to humanity and invitation to rejoin the Galactic Commonwealth. High Counselor Rex stood at the center, his scales shimmering with a mix of humility and hope. Before him stood not just Ambassador Ward, but a full human delegation including some of Earth's most prominent leaders. On behalf of the Galactic Council, Rex began, his voice carrying through the vast chamber. "We acknowledge our grave error in judgment and extend our deepest apologies to humanity. We offer full membership in the Commonwealth, with all rights and privileges previously denied. The human delegation listened politely, their expressions neutral. Ambassador Ward stepped forward, and the chamber grew absolutely silent. "We appreciate the Council's apology," Ward said, his voice clear and measured. "However, humanity must respectfully decline full membership in its current form." A wave of murmurs swept through the chamber. Rex's scales shifted to a surprised blue. This wasn't the response they had expected. Ward continued, "Instead, we propose a new type of relationship, one based on mutual respect and genuine cooperation. We call it the Galactic Cooperative Initiative." He activated a holographic display, showing a new organizational structure unlike anything the Council had seen before. No species stood above others. Instead, it showed an interconnected web of relationships, with each civilization contributing its strengths to the greater whole. "For too long, the galaxy has operated under a hierarchical system," Ward explained. "We suggest something different, a true partnership where advancement comes not from restriction, but from cooperation." The human proposal was revolutionary. Instead of the traditional council structure, they proposed specialized committees where different species would lead in their areas of expertise. The Zentarians would head energy research, the Regelians would oversee cultural exchange, and humans would share their gift for technological integration. But the Council's authority, Brightwing began to protest, has become obsolete. Rex interrupted, surprising everyone. "Look around you. The galaxy has changed. We must change with it." The human delegation shared knowing looks. This was the moment they had been working toward, not dominance, but transformation. "We don't want to rule," Ward said softly. "We want to build something better. Together." Over the next few hours, the details of the new arrangement were discussed. The old Commonwealth would be dissolved, replaced by the Cooperative. No species would have absolute authority. Instead, decisions would be made through a complex but fair system of shared responsibility. "There's one more thing," Ward added, activating another holographic display. "We've been working on something we call the Unity Project." The display showed massive construction projects in human space, but they weren't weapons or fortifications. They were research centers, cultural exchange facilities, and technological innovation hubs, all designed for multi-species cooperation. "These facilities are ready to accept researchers and scholars from all civilizations," Ward explained. "We've spent the last few years building not just technology, but bridges." The chamber erupted in excited discussion. Species that had been rivals for millennia saw new possibilities for cooperation. Ancient enemies found common ground in shared scientific pursuits. As the session concluded, Rex approached Ward privately. "You could have demanded anything," he said. "Why choose this path?" Ward smiled. "Because isolation breeds fear, and fear breeds conflict. We learned that lesson from our time in the Commonwealth. The future belongs to those who can work together, learn from each other, and grow beyond their limitations." As the delegates filed out of the chamber, there was a palpable sense of change in the air. The galaxy was entering a new era, not one dominated by humans or the old council, but one where each civilization could contribute its unique gifts to a greater whole. And in the end, that was humanity's greatest innovation. Not the technology they created, but the vision of a future where fear gave way to cooperation, and ancient rivals became partners in progress.